You're ready? I think we'll be ready.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and we'll call the meeting to order. We'll have roll call, please.
Call roll and say who's here. Board Member Butler.
Here.
Board Member Helzer.
Here.
Board Member Kitchen.
Here.
Board Member Noonan.
Here.
Chair Martins.
Here.
We have 5 members present in attendance, and that constitutes a quorum for conducting today's business.
Okay. We'll have staff confirmation, please, for the Kansas Open Meeting Act notice.
Marty,
I can confirm that the packet was posted and the required notice of today's meeting was provided.
Thank you, Margie. All right, then. I think next up on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 25th special meeting. If everybody had a chance to look at those, I hope, and not. Any comments or questions or corrections? If not, then I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion, we accept them.
Okay, thank you, Haley. Is second?
I'll second.
Caden seconded it. All right.
we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. We're going to dispense with the roll call and just allow a voice vote on the minutes.
Okay.
All those in
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried. That brings us down to new business then. I think we're ready to look at application CC 21-3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This application has been filed by Mr. Warren Eddiger on behalf of Salina Urology Care Center. And the request is for approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow exterior facade modifications to be made to a building located on the west side of South Santa Fe Avenue in the downtown area. The specific legal description is the south half of lot 148 and all of lot 150 on Santa Fe in the original town of Salina. And this property has various addresses ranging from 216 up to 222 South Santa Fe. And so what we have here is a case of a change in ownership and a change in use. We had the long established Vogue Theater, which was in this location starting in 1938 and closed its doors in 1994. And in 1995, the building was renovated by the Klubine and Retley Chartered Accounting Office. They were located next door to the north and expanded into the theater space. When they completed their project, there were only a few features left from the theater, one of which remained was the theater marquee sign, which they retained and modified to include in their company name. They worked with a local architect at that time, DMA Architects, and they had two cases that went before the Downtown Design Review Board in 1995, and I've summarized what those cases were, but some of it involved replacement of entry doors and doing things with the former ticket booth on the east wall of the building. There were also some inset windows along the Santa Fe storefront that had panels of upcoming movie events, and those were filled in. And then finally, the marquee sign was modified into a dark bronze and stone color. And obviously the theater message was removed and the lettering was changed to certified public accountants. Then in 2017, there was an application that came before the board to further modify the sign because the accounting firm merged with a firm known as Summer Spencer and Company. And so the sign was modified to add those names. Now we have a new owner. The accounting firm has relocated The new owner has plans to renovate the building and convert it to a care clinic. They do plan to retain much of the exterior masonry, but they also plan to add and replace some exterior features. If I misdescribe or misstate any of these, we do have the architect here to correct me. But as we looked at this, we saw that there was going to be the placement of new stucco on the exterior in some locations. There would be a brand new storefront and storefront entrances. The existing marquee sign would be repainted. There would be new wall signs added. And then there are, in select locations, there's installation of a new roof canopy with metal roof tiles to match the existing that are on the building. So I've done my best in the report to kind of summarize those changes as staff saw them. I think the most dramatic one is the new storefront window system and entrance that would be proposed on the front of the building. It opens it up quite a bit for natural light and openings. There's a new roof canopy over the middle and north storefront bays, and that is planned to match the existing tile on the building. There's new upper story windows on the south building and new stucco face and trim on the upper story of the north building. For the most part, the existing stone and brick on the upper story will remain unchanged and look similar to the way it does today. On the south wall, the exterior brick wall will primarily remain unchanged. On the west side, facing the public parking lot, there's a proposal to infill one of the existing windows. There's going to be new upper story windows installed. There'll be some new stucco face and trim applied to the west wall, and a new exterior stairway to the upper story will be constructed on the back side. And then at the top there, or just about where Dustin has it, there's a new rooftop equipment screen that's proposed, and that would shield the rooftop equipment on the top of the building. So as we reviewed this, this is not new construction, but it is alterations. And any building materials that are used should be visually compatible with the predominant materials found in the downtown area. There's a goal to maintain the established building scale, to maintain alignment of horizontal elements along a street block. Materials should be traditional to those used historically. And then the one that I think has the most for discussion and has different perspectives is one policy goal is to maintain all aspects of the storefront when possible. And so there's some things that are contradictory there about maintaining storefronts and also making storefronts pedestrian friendly. And that's probably what we'll focus on. There's also some guidelines about awnings, which would apply to the canopy as well. And then they are proposing to maintain the marquee sign. So this renovation covers all three building facades. We have a street face facade. We have the south facade that actually faces Spillman Plaza. So this building's open on three sides. And so this storefront change would convert what today is largely a blank wall, and it would dramatically increase the ratio of glass on the front facade. While the design guidelines recommend preservation of original storefronts that are intact and restoration instead of replacement wherever possible, in our review of this, staff doesn't believe that the existing storefront that's there today could be considered original because substantial modifications were made in 1995. And so we've recommended that the board in their review of this look at surrounding buildings on this block and determine whether you think the change to a more of a glass facade would be compatible with the appearance of nearby buildings. The other changes to the south and west are primarily maintenance related and cosmetic, and not as dramatic as the change on the front. The sign, while not necessarily historic, it was retained in 1994. It is immediately recognizable and visible when people travel Santa Fe. And so the profile of that sign is not being altered. And so the replacement signs appears to respect the size, scale, and design of the original building facade and the sign. So we don't think that there's anything being done with the marquee sign that would detract from the building facade or any surrounding businesses. This building has 75 feet in width, so it would allow up to 225 square feet of total sign area. So it's your responsibility to look at the signage and determine if it's in character with the surrounding property. We just noted that all the building records associated with the Vogue Theater portion of this building are at 222 South Santa Fe, but that entrance was at the far south end, and this is going to have more of a center entry. So we do think the 218 South Santa Fe is the appropriate address for this as proposed. So we've provided some suggested findings that could be made in support of approval of this project on page 6 of the report. On page 7, we've made some findings or offered them that might support not approving this, and some of those deal with maintaining the original ratio of window and storefront openings to solid wall. But if the board views this as a step in the right direction, not in the wrong direction, then preserving a storefront that's not attractive in its own right is, we don't see as an issue. So we've offered some findings that the use of finishes and materials for the signs are compatible with the predominant sign materials in the area. The sign would replace existing signage of the same physical dimension. There's not going to be any architectural features that would be obscured by the signage, and the existing profile of the marquee sign will not be altered. So your alternatives this afternoon would be to approve the certificate of compatibility application as proposed, finding that it conforms with our design guidelines. You could approve it subject to any special conditions or revisions that the board sees fit to apply. You could postpone consideration in order to acquire additional information, or you could deny the application upon making findings in support of denial. So following review of the application and any additional information presented at the hearing, we would recommend that you take whatever action is in the best interest of preserving the character of downtown Salina. If you choose option 2 to have any sort of condition of approval, we would just recommend our standard condition that if there are any significant changes to what was presented and approved by the board today, that we would be notified and determine whether any additional review by this board would be required before those changes are implemented. So with that, I'd be open to any questions that you have, and then if there's anything I misspoke or overlooked, then we have the architect here to better clarify those changes.
Okay, open it up for discussion. Any comments, questions from the commission?
I do have a couple of questions. On the north building and the stucco that is on there, was that, the entire block is exposed brick, and it just is interesting that this one building isn't. And I didn't know if there's any history behind that, or why, when stucco was applied, and why that has is being maintained, if it is something that could go back to the original brick. Yeah, those are my questions
Are
for
you
that.
you're referring to the lower level or both facades?
But both facades, and then carrying across onto the lower level of the south building. I'm not sure if that's stucco or not, but just a little more clarification on that and why that one building is different than the entire block.
Dean, can I go ahead and answer that?
Sure.
Okay. If you look at the south or the west side of Santa Fe, starting with the Klubine building and going to the north, you'll find the majority of the buildings all look like the Klubine building, Old Chicago, and the rest of them. The detailing, the time of construction is all very similar. There are a couple of exceptions, and one of them is the building that you're talking about, the north building of these two. I don't know what it originally looked like. I went to the library trying to find some old photographs. I found a postcard that was taken looking down the street in that direction, but it didn't tell me very much. What I can tell you is that the lower level, which is stucco, is actually a board that looks like stucco, and the area above the canopy, the existing area that has a white coating on it, is obviously not original. The upper portion of it, from what I have been able to find of the brick, I think they did that because they were having moisture problems with the brick. It looks like the brick had been losing some of the face of it. It's not the same brick as the two adjacent buildings. The lower level was originally when it was originally constructed, was entirely storefront, with the exception of about 18 inches of brick on either end. And we have had a permit to do interior demolition. The interior of both buildings has been completely gutted, and it shows the remains. There's the ghost marks on the existing concrete floor on that north building that shows where the storefront was, and there was a angled recess entrance. So if you went back to probably the 40s, this would be almost all glass on the lower level. The upper portion, I think, predated the two buildings on either side, just from the profile of it, and was not done in exactly the same character. So there isn't any feasible way to go back and pull that coating off and have a viable brick up on the upper level. So what we've tried to do is get it from passerby's point of view, looking more like what the adjacent building does. The stucco will be colored similar to the brick. We have some raised pieces on it that match the raised brick on the facade on the Vogue Theater building and also on Old Chicago, so that we get a little bit of that pattern in there. The Vogue building, similarly, when it was originally constructed, was not a theater. It was, I think, an implement building. One of these was anyway. And it also was almost entirely storefront, very much like it is shown in the rendering. There is a brick column in the center where we're showing the stucco portion of it. It's actually not brick anymore. And then the rest of it all was storefront, and we've exposed the lintel, the steel lintel up above. You can see where they had originally placed all of the glass, the storefront that would have been there. So in a lot of ways, with the exception of the solid section to the north of the entrance to the building, the rest of the glass is very close to what was the proportion originally in the building when it was constructed. We've left brick wherever we could. Where we've used stucco over it, it's either because the brick is not there any longer or because it's in poor enough condition that we can't bring it back to a serviceable both appearance and from a maintenance standpoint.
Okay. Thank you.
I was doing a little bit of research, and my aunt is actually like, I don't know, 85 years old, and she kind of vaguely remembers some of this stuff. And that's exactly what she told me, that those were very much glass storefronts back in the day. And as far as the stucco, I don't know that I have concern about that stucco, because the entire east side of that block is all stucco, from the Salina Regional, just past First Bank, Kansas, all the way to the corner of Walnut. It's all stucco.
Okay, yeah, and I had the same questions in general, so thank you for the explanation. And I'm pleased personally that, you know, you're keeping the Vogue sign, even though it's not going to be the Vogue signage, but keeping that up there, I think that's a nice little piece of history. Other comments or questions, anyone?
Sorry, I'm the question girl today.
Thank you. That's good.
I really appreciated you adding those horizontal kind of decorative pieces to mimic the other buildings. But I did notice like each of the other buildings have little corner pieces, and I didn't know, the rendering doesn't show that there's going to be anything to kind of mimic the little corner pieces in those rectangular features, and whether or not you'd considered having something to pull out to really have it mimic it even more. That's one question. And then just from my arts background, I love the back is such an improvement, and I think it will be glorious. But I see a big open space right next to one of our, you know, redone plazas that could, have you all considered, you know, partnering with Salina Arts Humanities or something to do some sort of public art piece back there? Because it's like a beautiful blank wall right next to a plaza that could be really cool. So, and that's just me with the artist side on that. So.
That question was in two parts, and the first had to do with the little raised section on the stucco that frame the windows and mimic what's being done with the brick. We can very easily take those corners and change those both with color and even make them protrude a little bit farther, and so it's a closer representation of that. And I think we can do that. As far as some artwork on the rear of the building, I personally would be very open to that. We'll have to visit with the owner about it and see what they want to do. One of the obvious questions is who maintains it and how do we protect it? It's an area that occasionally gets a little volunteer art, I'll put it. So yeah, it's certainly something that I'll bring up with them, and see if they're interested, they can get in touch with Arts and Humanities and see what we can do.
And just for the benefit of the board and for Mr. Ediger, there was, I guess now it seems a distant past, but it primarily occurred in 2019, where we had a large committee and we were developing guidelines for a arts and entertainment ordinance that would cover the downtown area, that would deal with activities in the right of way, and then also would deal with the visual environment. And it was envisioning things that those types of things have been found to be most successful when you have some sort of we call it a wall agreement or whatever between artists and between the building owner, so that there's two sides to that, so that there's clear understanding of who owns the art, because there's been cases in Lawrence and some other places where if it's not clearly documented, then the building owner, since it's on their building, think that they own the art, and the artist might think that they own the art. So we found that those things work best if there is a two-party agreement that obligates the owner to do maintenance, that clarifies who actually owns the artwork. And so that we're trying to work with Arts and Humanities to set up a program for that encourages that, but also encourages that it be done in a way that documents things and protects the interests of both the artist and the building owner.
Okay. Other comments, questions? If not, I'll accept a motion on the proposal.
Okay, I've talked a lot. I was waiting for someone else. I will move for it's option 2, right? That if there's any major, with the understanding if there's any major changes that you will come back in front of this board for approval.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there from Katie, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Haley seconds it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve a certificate of compatibility for these exterior renovations, including the signage. And that is subject to the condition that if there are any significant changes to the proposed renovations as approved by the board, then staff will be notified to determine whether additional staff or design review board review will be required. And so that's the motion on the table. And so we'll take a roll call on those in favor. Board Member Butler,
Aye.
Board Member Noonan,
Aye.
Board Member Martins,
Aye.
Board Member Helzer,
Aye.
Board Member Kitchen.
Aye.
Okay, so option 2 is approved by a 5-0 vote, and we will provide a written communication to Mr. Ediger of your action today. And I think that concludes the public hearing portion of your agenda, unless there's any other comments or questions related to item 3.1.
All right then. I don't see, it doesn't appear that we have any administrative items or preliminary discussion items. So moving on down, and unless there's something we don't know, is there any unfinished or other business?
We are still on the once a month schedule until we get the until there are changes to that, or we get a request for a special meeting. So at this time, we don't think we'll have anything for a March 25th special meeting. So our next regular meeting will be the second Thursday in April. And the City Commission has moved to a hybrid public meeting. So what we're going to do starting, I think, the 1st of April for our planning boards and commissions is that we will offer the opportunity for those who want to attend the meeting in person, both board members and any applicants or members of the public. And so room 107 will be open, but if board members feel more comfortable, it will be done in a hybrid way. So we'll be setting up in room 107, but if you want to participate in the meeting by Zoom, we can continue to accommodate that. So when we refer to it as hybrid, we mean that there will be a physical presence in room 107, and those board members that wish to attend the meeting and come to the physical meeting room, they may. Those who don't feel comfortable or inclined to do that, you will still be able to participate by Zoom. So we'll have some further communication for you on that as we work it out, but we'll be transitioning all of our boards to a hybrid model starting the 1st of April.
Okay, thank you. Any other items from anyone or discussion? Then if not, I think we're ready to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, Haley made the motion, a second.
I'll second it.
Jennifer seconds. So all in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? All right then, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Forward to seeing you in April.